Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. Thanks sponsors, Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins & Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, ComC.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. I may possibly see all my sponsors at the National. So this is pre-National ramblings from me, just my own thoughts. I'm getting ready for the National. I will be there. I've made every one. It's been a great run, and the National keeps getting better. Okay, first of all, I got some questions as well as some things I want to say. First from Dave Zenzel. He was mentioning Fanatics Fest. Thank you, Michael Rubin. Took my 8-year-old son. He said it was the most fun he ever had at a card show by far. That doesn't surprise me. The other difference that has not been discussed is the National may be a nonprofit, not for-profit, and even though Fanatics Fest is for-profit, the fact that it has an owner willing to lose money to put on a great event, that's something that isn't going to happen with the National. It's not going to lose money in order to make money in future years. It's collective ownership for the National, and so that restricts some of the things they can do, but it makes sure that each year is going to stand on its own and hopefully be getting better and better. But I agree with you, David. Thank you, Michael Rubin, because he is investing in the category. And not that the National isn't, but the National is owned by the collective dealers. The point you made, though, is he took his 8-year-old son, and that was the most fun. Another difference between National and Fanatics Fest, you take your son. In the National, the son takes the father. You can't just collar the son and say, hey, come on, you're coming with me. It's going to be great. It's a card show. It needs to be the son telling the dad, hey, I am really excited about this, Dad. Will you take me? Then it's a super pleasurable experience if you're both really enjoying the cards. It's reminiscent of some dinners I've had over the years. I have different dinners I do for men, and one of them is called Sons and Fathers. So it's not father and son. It's not fathers bringing their sons. It's sons, my contemporaries, bringing their father. And I did that many times when my dad was still alive. And it was just a rich experience for a bunch of guys in their 50s and 60s and 70s bringing dads in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. It was pretty casual, but great fellowship. Not all collectors. So at the National, sons, bring your fathers. Fanatics Fest, fathers, bring your sons. Along those lines, I just had the episodes with Mike Arenstein and his son Andrew. That'd be an example. Andrew could bring Mike, Mike could bring Andrew, but they're both adults. I hope to see them at the National for many years, but that's a good example of that. You need to both be collectors if you're going to the National. If one's a collector and one's curious, Fanatics Fest would be the way to go. Another thing, I got response back from Mike Johnson, the guy I interviewed at Father's Day, about his father and my father having some similarities. We didn't get into the cards as much, but same thing. That would have been great. He would have been a great fit for having our dads get together. And there's something about being an adult son and being able to do stuff with your dads. The other thing Mike was saying was that he really appreciated the early price guides that had color sections in the middle, showing what the cards look like. Many of those cards originally, some of them were mine, but a lot of them were from Barry Halper in that very first color edition. I think Denny went up to New Jersey with his nice camera and shot those and put them in there. Over the years, Mike, sorry, but the space, the thickness of the books, the shrunk size of the columns, it just got so the pictures were getting smaller and smaller, and the color was just not feasible. But Barry Halper was a great friend to me and to Denny. We really enjoyed going up there. He had his own little museum in his basement. People have talked, what about Atlanta and Detroit for 2028? The vote for that will be in a couple of weeks, but the vote for 2029 will be in 2026, and that will be too soon to know whether Atlanta or Detroit put on a great show. My guess is for 2029, there'll be perhaps whichever one didn't win, as long as they had a respectable showing, and then possibly Chicago again, and maybe a third city. But that's the challenge when you're going 3 years ahead. You can't really know. And if Chicago has 2026 being just as good or better than 2025, and 2027 being just as good, it's going to be hard to pry it out of the hands of our friends in Chicago. Even though it's owned by the board and there's a show manager, Chicago would be putting a pretty strong case. And I have a prediction. I predict that the National this year in Chicago will draw 126,000 people. Because the Fan Fest declared 125, and I think the 126, 130, whatever, is reachable and perhaps even certifiable. I'd like to see some certified numbers because I think we're getting up there to some big numbers, and I hope everything goes great. I've had conversations off and on with Skeppy, who's a member of the hobby, very thoughtful guy, written me a lot of questions. I had a long conversation with him a month ago, and it just wasn't conducive to turning it into a podcast because we just got into the weeds and really enjoyed going back and forth about some what ifs and some ways to harness new technology. It just wasn't suitable for posting to a podcast. But he did have some other questions over the months that he sent in to me diligently and faithfully. And he talked about what happened if the value of cards dropped. That's not going to happen in Chicago unless there would be horrible attendance there for no reason. Then that would be scary. I don't think so. As long as the hobby is not just hot, but perceived as hot, I don't think we're going to see any decreases in cards. And if we did see a decrease across the board in cards, not just easy cards, but even the tough cards, then I think you'd have the true collectors coming out and saying, I want some of those. If it's a lower price, that's even better. Skeppy also asked about real-time pricing tools. And that's basically like the stock market, like ticker tape, the reporting the trades as they come along. First of all, you'd have to have the reporting of the trades, and they'd have to be certified. Blockchain could come into it. There'd have to be some incentives, although some of the platforms, and certainly Fanatics has the muscle to do that, and maybe others. I know when we were doing not up-to-the-minute price guides, but we were doing monthly price guide, it's tough gathering all the data and putting it together. So if there was a ticker tape that came in and you could just see it coming in and you could digitally search what the latest sales were, again, you'd have to have people reporting, and I believe they'd have to be incented. And Fanatics could do that, or they could acquire somebody that would do that. I wish I was still in the saddle because I think I'd love to tackle that problem, but I'm retired. Lastly, Skeppy talks about, because he's a faithful listener to Jeremy Lee, famous for eye appeal. And so basically my pre-national thought is that the absolute best place you can be if you're interested in raw cards and eye appeal is at the National. It is going to be the largest concentration of raw as well as graded cards where you can actually see them up close. And you can see, I know it's a technical grade of 3, or I can see that it's a little rough as a raw card, but you can hold it in your hand, hold it closer than arm's length, and really see and flip it on the back. And I think the National is the best place to see vintage cards, raw vintage cards, graded cards, whatever. Again, at the Fanatics Fest, you're going to see mainly slabbed cards, I think. Because at the National, when you see raw cards, it's going to be at the table of somebody that's perhaps had a table at every particular show that has been there. And some of the older guys don't grade as much. So it's buyer beware, but if you're dealing with a national dealer that's been there every year for 45 or 46 years, that'd be some assurance, not perfect. Also, I always look forward to seeing my sponsors, Upper Deck, Topps, and Panini. At the National, I got a box of 2024-25 Mosaic basketball, and I just wasn't going to do a whole review on it other than I liked it. I actually got a good card in it that's going to go on my wall. It's the Matas Buzelis. It's an autograph card. That's a hold for me. Again, you're a flipper if you're either buy and sell. The option to hold means you're a collector. I'm going to slab it, put it up on my wall, because it could go up. It could go down, but it could go up a lot more if I read some of the press clippings coming out of Chicago. So if it's 50-50 whether he's going to go up or down, the upside is greater than the downside. Again, I'm not a flipper, so I'm going to grade it. Thank you, Panini. I'll put it on my wall. When people ask me, I'll say that's where I got it. But Panini deserves kudos for their support of the National over the years. I've been involved in the Hall of Fame of the NSCC, and we elect new members. And I think there's some members there from Panini. All the card companies in the very early days did not support us. Certainly Panini in the last 15 years has been a strong supporter. Thank you for that. Lastly, you read a lot about making things great again. And regardless of where you stand, we want to make things great. And if it's great again, that's even better. So I was thinking, am I doing my part to make dollar boxes great again? And the answer is no, because dollar boxes were not great before. They didn't really even exist. In fact, I'm realizing that it's a post-Beckett baseball card monthly phenomenon. When the monthly magazines were coming out, you didn't see dollar boxes as much because every card could be looked up on the paper, in the print, and priced. And if you saw the card, the price would be based on that. And so it's not being great again, but dollar boxes, I think, are here to stay as long as there's so many cards out there that are hard to get a perfectly accurate price, let's say. They're not worth looking up when they're $1. Making player collectors cool again. Actually, that is true. I think Christina Thorson and Iowa Dave was talking about a Ray Langford master collector, and Christina's got Maxi Kleba. I think there always was some interest in that, but now it's more vocal. You have a greater megaphone because of social media. And what those people are doing, they're very passionate, and they're not quiet, but their passion is coming through. And with the digital search capabilities, hopefully they're having access to completing their rainbows, et cetera, et cetera. Talked about Jeremy Lee. He's trying to make eye appeal great again. I think it always was great. Before grading, it really was all about eye appeal. Now, the condition elasticity of price was not as great. But if you looked at 3 cards, if they were raw, and one had a perfect center with a blemish on the back, and another one was pretty good front and back, you're probably going to take the one that has a great presentation on the front with a gum stain or something on the back. But so I think eye appeal always was there. It's just now it's in conjunction with the grade. If it's a grade 3, tell me more. I want to see if it's a 3 that looks like a 1, which usually the 3 looks like at least a 3. Eye appeal is mainly about bumping up the grade because you find the defects not very offensive. Jeremy talks about own appeal. Again, that is the absolute anti-flipper mentality. If you are delighted to hold something, to own something, I'm a holder. I'm an own appeal guy. When I own it, I don't want to sell it. I want to show people what I have, and I'm trying to allow my cards to be shown more. Listen, he's making pinhole cards cool again. Now, Mookie, they were never cool. They were never great, but they can be a bargain if it's a tiny pinhole. If you tried to fill it in, you'd be altering the card. And so is it better to leave the pinhole there? I think it is. It's better to not alter the card. But that calls into question if you have an A designation for authentic or altered, is that better than a low number? And I think it depends. If I have a great looking card, a 71 Topps card that somebody put a black Sharpie in the corner where there was a little bit of chipping, and it crushes the grade when they detect it under black light, they're always going to detect it. They're going to look for it and they're going to find it, but they could slab it as authentic or altered. But you're talking about the story, the details. And once a card has a serial number or it has a slab kind of number, then you can track that card. Many of these alterations were in no way deceptive. They were not malicious. They were benign. It was somebody in my neighborhood that just did something. They didn't know any better. And then it got into my collection. I didn't know any better. But if you grade it, they're going to call it what it is. I'm bullish on authentic cards. I think it's a further evolution of the theory of eye appeal, is that even if it's authentic, would I rather have an A or a 1 or a 2? And in many cases, I'd rather have an A if it's an A that presents very well. I've said I've turned in an Aaron rookie card. I had a duplicate, put it in. It came back authentic, trimmed, just very slightly trimmed in the lower right corner. I'm not going to sell it. It's described accurately. At first, I thought maybe they made a mistake. No, they didn't make a mistake. But at some point, somebody's going to want that, and it looks way better than a 1 or a 2. I thought it was going to come back as a 5 or 6. I'm holding for now, but at some point, that might be something. I'm really excited about having the national official trade night for vintage. I hope that really blossoms and becomes an annual thing, and that'd be something I could bring. Because again, I wouldn't want to send it through the mail. I want to say, hey, look, this is trimmed. Here it is. Here's slabbed. You can see that. Adam Gray, I hope to see him again at the National. Saw him last year. He makes a list of his meetups on the plane on the way. I do it way before that, but I don't schedule them firmly. But I schedule my blocks of time to where I don't usually leave for lunch. So I'm usually there for the whole day. I've got morning totally on cards, afternoon a blend of cards and social, wandering around, and then evening almost purely social. So I've got some things I'm going to do in terms of content at the National, not disclosed at this point, but if you see me, you might figure it out, and it'd be something that I hope is a lot of fun. I'm looking for this to be the best National ever, the best one for me, and the best one for all of y'all as well. Like I said, I'm not looking for great cards, I'm just looking for really good cards that are undervalued or diamonds in the rough. So thanks, everybody. I'll see you in another week. If you're there, look me up. I've said where I'm going to be, wandering in the afternoon and pretty locked down in the morning. And I will be looking forward to meeting some of you, answering questions, and just enjoying what's going to be a fabulous event. So thanks, and see you then.